For centuries, the world's great warships ruled the waves with thundering cannons and billowing sails, but hidden behind the booming broadsides were children at war. Few roles in the Age of Sail were as perilous or tragic as that of the powder monkey, the boys tasked with ferrying gunpowder from the ship's magazine to its guns. Ranging from 8 to 14 years old, these youths scurried through smoke-choked decks, carrying sacks of explosive powder while shot and splinters whirled around them. Today, we're diving into the grueling, nightmarish reality of life as a powder monkey. The practice of using boys as powder carriers emerged with the rise of large naval artillery in the Age of Sail, roughly the 17th through 19th centuries. The British Royal Navy first coined the term powder monkey in the 17th century, and by the 18th century, virtually every fighting ship, British, French, American or otherwise, had its complement of these child runners. They used quick, agile boys to sprint between the magazine and gun crews in spaces too cramped for grown men. Their speed became a tactical edge. Without them, a ship's rate of fire collapsed. During the great wars of the late 1700s and early 1800s, Napoleonic, 1812 and beyond, powder monkeys were as vital as gunners, though they held no rank and often went unlisted on the rolls. Most recruits came from society's ragged edge, street orphans, workhouse inmates, or sons of destitute dock workers who traded hunger ashore for rations at sea. Jonas Hanway's Marine Society in London alone clothed and shipped hundreds of impoverished youths each year, presenting the arrangement as charity while funneling fresh labour to the fleet. Voluntary enlistment wasn't the only pipeline. Royal Navy press gangs dragged boys from quayside taverns or merchant brigs whenever manpower ran low. Once their papers were signed or forged, escape became nearly impossible. Across the Atlantic, the early US Navy listed boy third class at the absolute bottom of the pay table, about $6 a month, roughly $170 in modern money, while French mousses and Spanish grumetes earned even less. Rankless and voiceless, they inhabited a legal limbo that exposed them to corporal punishment and withheld any share of prize money. Life aboard a man-of-war was punishing even for adults. For a powder monkey, it was non-stop labor and danger. Outside battle, the boys doubled as cabin servants and deckhands, rising before dawn to scrub planks with sand and holy stones, haul water, launder clothes, scour galley pots, polish guns, lug rope, tend chickens or goats, mend sails, and run messages. Leisure did not exist. They were the ship's default errand runners. Meanwhile, they were being groomed as future seamen. Veteran hands hauled them aloft to learn the ropes, scrambling up swaying masts to reef sails high above the sea. Officers claimed early exposure built the agility and nerve needed in storms. When not overhead, they scurried through press-packed decks. First-rate ships crammed 800 souls into a floating city. Children slept wherever space remained. Hammocks slung below the guns or deep in the orlop beside the powder magazine, air thick with bilge, smoke and sweat, alive with rats and insects. Filth and confinement quickly became normal. Treatment varied. Many sailors treated the boys like mascots, slipping them extra food or shielding them from harm. Others vented frustrations on the smallest bodies. Bullying, beatings, and even abuse occurred, and naval discipline offered no mercy. A boy who erred was bent over a cannon and caned, up to a dozen strokes, enough to welt him for weeks. The constant threat of punishment layered atop an unforgiving hierarchy that demanded instant obedience to every rank, kept them in chronic exhaustion. Muscles sore from toil, nerves taut, eyes forever scanning for the next shouted order. Thus, the powder monkey's routine was an endless circuit of chores, perilous training climbs, cramped sleep, and the looming reality of battle, endured by children the adults considered the lowest creatures aboard His Majesty's or any nation's ships of war. Powder monkey's meals mirrored the adult allowance: salt pork or beef, dried peas, oatmeal, and rock-hard hardtack biscuits alive with weevils. Boys quickly learned to wrap the bread on the table to knock insects free, or soak it in coffee to soften the crust. Fresh fruit or vegetables were rare and usually reserved for officers, so vitamin C deficiency rotted gums and loosened teeth until the Admiralty mandated daily lemon juice in the 1790s. Water kept in oak casks slimed within weeks. Men and boys alike drank sour beer or heavily watered rum, grog, because fermentation killed pathogens. Thus, 12-year-olds drew rum rations almost from the day they stepped aboard. Injuries were constant. A recoiling 32-pounder could crush ribs. A falling block could smash a skull. Splinters 3 feet long turned cannonballs into shotgun blasts. The ship's surgeon, armed with saws, forceps, and laudanum, worked on the orlop using a leather strap as a bite block. Amputation was common. Antiseptics were not, so infection killed more monkeys than enemy iron. The psychological toll on powder monkeys was crushing. Children who once roamed shore streets, impoverished but free, found themselves captives in a floating barracks ruled by iron discipline. Any illusions of adventure vanished with the first crack of the bosun's cane or sight of a broadside. Cut off from family, forced to swallow fear and grief, each boy occupied the very bottom of shipboard society and learned early that showing emotion invited more abuse. Battle magnified every terror. At all hands to quarters, the boys stuffed rags in their ears, plunged into the dim magazine for powder bags, and sprinted along smoke-choked passages while the hull shuddered and oak splinters scythed through flesh. Cannon blasts roared, men screamed, and friends fell in moments, yet the monkeys had to keep running, for the ship's rate of fire, and often the outcome, depended on them. Many were maimed or killed mid-dash. Those who survived witnessed decapitations, flash fires, and decks awash in blood, all before their 14th birthday. When silence finally fell, shock continued. Corpses lined for burial, amputated limbs tossed overboard, decks holystoned free of gore. Survivors' guilt and nightmares were inevitable, but 18th century navies offered no comfort or counseling. A boy who broke down risked scorn or punishment, so traumas were swallowed until they warped into hardened detachment or despair. Because voyages and wars stretched for years, escape was nearly impossible. Pressed lads had no hope of early release. Desertion in port meant the lash or the gallows, and some children jumped overboard in hopeless bids for freedom or otherwise. A handful won medals for valor under fire, but countless others simply endured, clinging to camaraderie with fellow boys or a rare kindly sailor. Even those brief ties were fragile. Death could claim a friend in the next engagement. Thus, powder monkeys bore some of the fleet's heaviest burdens with the fewest defenses. Their childhoods were erased by terror, grief, and relentless danger, leaving scars they carried long after they left the sea, if they lived that long at all. If you found this exploration into the life of a powder monkey interesting, be sure to check out our video on life of a galley slave during the Age of Sail, on your screen now. But if you've made it this far, thank you for watching, stay curious, and we'll see you on the next one.